Hello again, welcome back to 7Shadows Market. We are Montgomery, Alabama's Enchanted Geek Shop. Today I'm going to be geeking on the movie Dungeons and Dragons. Now, I know what some of you folks might be saying to yourself. Why on earth are you taking the time to discuss a movie that if I look it up on the magical Google machine, I will find not a kind word about it? Well, that's because I say that it is time to finally put out some kind words about this particular film. It's a 2000 film, so it's getting up there in age now. A couple things that I want you to keep in mind as we go into discussing the movie, and maybe it will also clarify where some of these other reviews or comments come from. First of all, you have to keep in mind the time frame that this movie was made. There was a lot of failures of fantasy genre films. So with a lot of fantasy genre films not doing so well for big box office, it's hard to get people to invest in a film. So that's one strike. Strike two, you are also dealing with a franchise. However popular it may be in the hardcore geek community and pop culture in general, Dungeons and Dragons, still, based on Hollywood dollars, it's still a very niche investment. So not everybody is looking to throw their money into it. So there was a lot of funding that had to be pulled from different sources. And although if you look up the dollar figures on this film, it seems like there's a lot of money put into the movie. I think total 40-ish something million dollars actually goes into was attributed to this particular movie in getting it to happen. But you have to remember a couple things about that. One, there is the available cash, how much was available at different increments in making the movie. So you may have a cumulative amount of dollars invested in a movie that you've wrangled. However, if you only have a few $100,000 here during the time you're filming this scene, that's what you spend. And then if you get another few $100,000 later, then you can add to it or do this kind of stuff. So a lot of things going on, plus there's licensing and all this kind of stuff that goes on. And the D&D license, it took the fact of the matter that this movie even occurred, there was tons of obstacles for it even getting off the ground. So there's some of your backstory. You also want to keep in mind the following, that with those starts and stops in the cash flow, there were certain things in the movie that were not able to be fully realized. So you may run into some continuity jumps, but hey, we run into that on big budget films as well. There can be a little point where we go from point A to point C and you're wondering what happened in point B. There were things they wanted to do in post-production that they simply ran out of the funding, and the pressure was there to get the movie done. Why do I say all this stuff up front? Because you must go into the movie with the proper frame of mind. Do not go into the movie expecting to see a super high blockbuster style Lord of the Rings type affair where you have megatons of effects. There are effects, but these are earlier CGI computer animated effects that you will see at different points. So there can be a point. In many ways, I think this was kind of the precursor to a lot of the movies that you see on the Sci-Fi Network, which I'm a fan of that kind of stuff. So don't be looking for way up here, Oscar winning. Of course, the Oscars is a whole different thing. Let's just say a large blockbuster thing. You won't find that here, but what you will find is a very charming movie, I feel. So let's cut to the chase. What is it about? Well, plot-wise, you have the Kingdom of Izmir. The Kingdom of Izmir is separated by class. So you have the ruling class of mages, which are up here, and then down here you have all the commoners. Now, within the commoners, you have, they're normal folks, so you have an assortment of people, including some low-tier thieves, which is where our two of our protagonists come from. They are low-tier thieves. They are Ridley and Snails. Those are two of our three chief protagonists. And again, with these kind of things, I'm not going to give you the whole movie in general, but I'm going to give you a few things about it, because the whole gist is I'm letting you know why I dig the film and some key points. So with that, you have mages. Boom. You have the commoners. Well, there is a new empress. She's young, and this empress is not a fan of this power structure. She believes commoners and mages should live together, rule together. Commoners should have some input on what happens with them, and it shouldn't be an all mage happy sort of affair. So, with that, the problem is you have people like Profian. Now, Profian, he is our chief baddie. Now, with Profian, he does not want that kind of change, and furthermore, he's power hungry and he pretty much wants control over everything. So he is trying to overthrow the Empress because she's young. That's crazy talk. This is a theme that George Lucas would repeat with the Star Wars franchise with Amidala. So he's going to do it by any means necessary. Keep in mind that the Empress controls the gold dragons because she has a gold scepter, and that's one of the things that she's able to do. So Profian wants control of the dragons, so he's trying to make a scepter to control dragons, which leads on to other things later. He's also working it politically. There's a point where he puts her in front of the Council of Mages and is talking about how terrible her ideas are and she needs to be stripped of power. So there is your basic premise. So a lot of things transpire. The role of Profian is played by Jeremy Irons, and he is our top tier actor in this film. So, and everybody else is going to fall in line underneath that as you go through the casting. So, Jeremy Irons, if you are a fan of Jeremy Irons like I am, you do not want your Jeremy Irons low key. You want that Jeremy Irons. And you know what? That's what you get here. You get a lot of great angst yells and kind of things here. He's feeling it and he's playing it very, very well. So he's our chief bad guy. We have his henchman, which is Damodar, blue lips and all. He's cold, he's methodical, he's calculating. He is played wonderfully by Bruce Payne. If I say the name Bruce Payne and you say, oh, Bruce Payne, that's cool. That means you like a lot of C and B level movies, and this movie will fit right in with your particular tastes in what you can dig. Some other key things that I also want to point out. Now, the role of the Empress is played by Thora Birch, who I don't even know if she did anything after this. She's pretty stiff, I'll be honest with you. However, again, if you're a fan of these kind of movies, you're used to it. You've seen better, but you've seen far worse. There's a couple of key cameos that I also want to point out. Richard O'Brien. You'll know Richard O'Brien as Riff Raff from Rocky Horror Picture Show. Richard O'Brien is in here. He plays the head of a thieves guild. You also have the fourth Doctor, the one and only Tom Baker. He plays Halfarth. He has a brief cameo, but an important one nonetheless. So when you see it, you might not snap that it's him at first, because if you're looking for brown curly hair Doctor, remember this was done in 2000, so taping was about 99, 2000. So some time has passed, but it's cool to see him in this. There's also Lee Ehrenberg. Now, Lee Ehrenberg's a name that's not going to jump out right at the top of your movie. I don't want to say psyche, your movie knowledge base. There you go. You'll know him, however, from the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. He played Pintel. He was part of the comedic relief duo. He had the bald head and the straight hair, and he had the friend who, but he had the wooden eye that was always rolling around, and he was always a puppet. That's him. And in this one, he is comic relief again. He plays Elwood the dwarf, who wants to get paid, and he likes to overeat, and he likes to drink too much. So comic relief there comes from him. So another key role here is Snails. I want to revisit this because if you read about the movie, a lot of things come up about Marlon Wayans playing Snails. So there's a lot of comic elements in the movie due to Marlon Wayans. Now, I feel that Marlon Wayans is just simply being Marlon Wayans. So he was given a costume and said, here, your name is Snails, Ridley's your friend, this is what you're going to do, and you be Marlon Wayans. Which means you're going to get some corny jokes, some physical comedy, things like that. If you were a fan of In Living Color, the way I was, you'll know as cutting edge as that show was, there was a lot of cornball stuff in there too that were kind of like, oh, you groan, but you still find it funny. You're going to have some of that in here. The first time that I ever watched this movie, the comedic element, I thought it was a little too much because I was expecting a straight, Dungeons and Dragons thing. But as I got further into the movie in that viewing, I realized how integral the snail's character is to the whole film, and it ties it together. And then by the time I watched it the second time, and here we are 100 bajillion years later, I still dig the flick a whole lot. So there are some key things that I like to check off the boxes on things that I dig that will draw me to different movies for different reasons. One, we have the fantasy genre, so I'm there. Two, we have some cool cameos, so boom, I'm there. We have a dragon war. There is a dragon war that happens. I'm not going to tell you how we get there, but we do get there. A lot of special effects, but I'm not really drawn to special effects near as much as I am drawn to special effects that you have to be a little more creative, or those early wave special effects. So that's what draws me in regards to that. So again, you won't find a lot of kind words about the movie. Keep in mind too that you're not going to find a exact play-by-play of a D&D quest. You're not going to find that either. In fact, the producer of the film, who helped get everything together, wasn't looking to do that. So don't look for the rules of gameplay to be going on, but you will see random characters and creatures. You'll be like, oh, look, there's a beholder there. There's that. There's cool references. Again, earlier I used the term Thieves Guild. You will see that and those kind of things happening. So, and also at some point, because again, I go back to the fact that it's just a miracle that this even occurred, because between trying to get the funding and everything, then the producer, they had a whole bunch of directors that they wanted to get, and there was a list of A-list directors, and all of them eventually, as time progressed, they bailed out. There were some big names that were involved, well, names that later went on to be big, and they all bailed out because the fantasy genre was dying and da-da-da. They were wrong, obviously, but at that particular moment in time. So the producer winds up becoming the director, and having never directed anything, it adds to an element of the movie where, could it, based on the budget that it had, could it have been more polished looking? Yes. Does it come off looking way more low budget? Yes. Overall, it was probably a mid-tier budget. I think they probably had, again, I told you about 40-ish, but again, available cash changed from time to time throughout the movie, and I think they only spent maybe about 20 million or so went into the actual production. And when you're dealing with a special effects kind of situation, that's really not a ton of money to put into a special effects thing. So a lot of people were learning. A lot of people were learning on this film, so that's another reason that I find it endearing, and I dig it. So it's a New Line Cinema's release. It is Dungeons and Dragons. I hope you dig it as much as I do, and if you don't, that's cool. Come to the shop, talk to me about it, and say, hey, I watched that film, and I will never get that time in my life back. So, dude, what's up? That was terrible. Or you can say, hey, I dig that movie too. I thought I was the only one. Come on by, see me at 7Shadows Market. We are Montgomery, Alabama's Enchanted Geek Shop. We are located inside Eastbrook Flea Market and Antique Mall, 425 Coliseum Blvd. There's the smaller booth on the main floor, but if you want to come down and hang out and see all the stuff in the big section, that's down here in the basement, because the cool stuff is underground. If you want to know more about me and what I do in my shop, you can follow me at 7Shadows Market on Facebook, 7Shadows Market on Instagram, this YouTube channel, also 7Shadows Market. Oh, the website, which has all those links on there, 7shadows.com. That's the number 7, the word shadows.com. Thank you for your support. Remember, buy local. By supporting the locally owned businesses in your community, you are supporting the backbone of your particular local world. And yes, this includes the local artists, including everyone that has a band. Hopefully everybody will be out playing soon. The people that draw the pictures, the people that do performance art, poets, whatever. We all need your support. So thank you. God bless you. And I appreciate you taking the time to listening to my incessant ramblings. Tune in for more of this type of chit chat, or again, just come on by and see me because this is the kind of stuff we talk about all day. Thank you for your support.